Chosen one. Everything around you has seemed quiet, too quiet, as if heaven went silent and left you wandering in circles. You've questioned the timing, the path, the point. But listen carefully. This moment is not random. It is proof. God is calling time on your wilderness season. This isn't just another spiritual post. This is a divine interruption, a signal from the courts of heaven that what tried to bury you is about to witness your re-emergence. The dry season is breaking. The delay is lifting. And the evidence is all around you if you dare to perceive it. You've been hidden, but not forsaken. Set apart, not set aside. The confusion wasn't punishment, it was positioning. God wasn't trying to frustrate you, He was training you to follow His voice in the dark. To trust, even when no doors opened. To believe when no one else saw what you carried. This silence wasn't absence. It was the sound of heaven preparing your re-entry. And now, the wilderness is losing its grip. Something is breaking open. What once felt like delay was actually divine direction. Your feet may have grown weary, but your spirit didn't give up. You have survived what others sank under. And this is your sign. It wasn't for nothing. You weren't just waiting, you were being made. There's a weight on your name, a glory on your life that hell hoped the wilderness would crush. But here you are, wounded maybe, but wiser, scarred, but still breathing, and still chosen. You didn't imagine the shift you feel. The warfare intensified because the promise is near. The closer you got to the border of breakthrough, the more the wilderness tried to convince you to turn around. But you didn't. That alone is proof of divine strength working through you. The Word of God declares in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 1, verse 30, "The Lord your God, who goes before you, will fight for you, as he did in Egypt, before your very eyes." Let that settle in your spirit. He's not trailing behind you, He's going ahead. He's not wondering what to do next, He's already prepared your path. This wilderness is not your final address. It was your training ground, not your tomb. You are not stuck. You are staged for release. You are not abandoned. You are assigned. You are not lost. You are led. This is not a coincidence. This is divine timing. Every strange dream, every late night stirring, every flash of memory or prophetic number, none of it was random. You've been guided here. Heaven has been orchestrating this very moment. This is the shift. Don't sleep on it. The season is changing. But if your mind stays in survival mode, you'll reject the promise. If your heart is still bitter from the journey, you'll sabotage the destination. That's why God is meeting you now, not just to open the door, but to prepare your soul to walk through it. Some of you haven't even realized that the door is already open. You're waiting for fireworks, but God has already moved. The wilderness has ended. The problem isn't the path, it's your perception. You're still looking through the lens of pain. But heaven is saying, look again. Don't look with your eyes. Look with your spirit. You are standing at the gate of fulfillment. The burden is lifting. The fire is returning. The clarity is coming. What was foggy is about to become unmistakable. And yes, there will be proof. People will see it. You won't need to explain the shift. The fruit will speak. The presence on your life will announce what your words never could. You're about to carry something that commands attention, not because of ego, but because of evidence. But first, act in faith. If this word has pierced through your confusion, your delay, your frustration. Then, don't walk away silently. Comment the number 555 below as a declaration: my wilderness is ending, and I am ready to step out. M2. And if this message confirmed what your spirit already knew, share it. Speak it. Let it reach someone else walking through the same desert. Subscribe to stay connected. This is only the beginning. This message didn't find you by mistake. It was heaven's strategy to locate your spirit at the edge of breakthrough. You didn't scroll here, you were summoned. And if you feel that stirring in your chest right now, don't ignore it. The wilderness didn't win. Grace did. What's coming next will make every dry step worth it. Stay alert. The proof is coming. You were born for this exit. You were not created to die in the middle of process. You were never meant to pitch your tent in the wilderness. That ache in your spirit, the one that refuses to settle, was never a flaw. It was divine evidence that your time here was temporary. You were not sentenced to stay in this season. You were positioned to pass through it. And now the cloud is moving. The fire is leading. Heaven is calling you forward. Everything you've endured has led to this moment. The silent years, the internal battles, the waiting seasons, the rejection, the deep disappointments. You thought you were just surviving, but heaven was sculpting something rare inside of you. While you were busy doubting your steps, God was orchestrating your exit. You weren't delayed, you were developed. And now, the shift has come, not in theory, not in principle, but in the spirit. You are stepping out. It won't look how you imagined. It may not feel how you expected, but you'll know it in your bones. I can't stay here anymore. Because when the wilderness season ends, your spirit gets restless where it used to feel comfortable. You start to feel misaligned with the places that once felt safe. The manna that used to sustain you now feels stale. What used to be just enough is no longer enough. And it's not because something is wrong. It's because you are outgrowing what once fed you. You are transitioning from survival to sonship, from scraping by to stepping forward. And no, it doesn't mean you've figured it all out, but you've grown, you've changed, and heaven knows it. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Isaiah. Chapter 52, verse 11. Depart. Depart. Go out from there. Touch no unclean thing. Come out from it, and be pure. You who carry the vessels of the Lord, let that settle in your spirit. You are not walking out empty-handed. You are walking out carrying something holy, something sacred. Your wilderness wasn't wasted. It was consecration. And now you carry something that can't go back into ordinary spaces. You've been purified in secret to carry weight in public. That's why the familiar no longer fits. That's why you've been sensing a tearing, a pulling, a quiet stretching of your heart. It's because heaven is calling you forward, and some things can't come with you. You were born for this exit. You weren't meant to stay where there's no movement. The wilderness was never the destination. It was the in-between. It was the classroom, not the throne room. And now that your roots have been tested, your calling is being revealed. This is the part the enemy didn't want you to see. Because if you ever realized how close you were to stepping out, you would stop doubting and start moving. If you ever saw how much authority has been forged in your obedience, you'd stop explaining yourself to people who don't carry your burden. You were never wandering. You were waiting on divine release. You were never aimless. You were anchored even in the silence. And now, everything changes. You won't need to announce it. You won't need to defend it. Your exit will speak for itself. The same mouths that questioned your process will have no words when they witness your emergence. The same people who thought you missed your moment will soon see that heaven hid you until the time was right. But hear this: don't sabotage the exit by clinging to old attachments. Don't delay the promise by entertaining voices that want to keep you comfortable. This is your moment to move. Not fast, but in obedience. Not loud, but in alignment. There's a door opening, but only faith will carry you through it. The pain wasn't a waste. The delay wasn't punishment. It was all preparation for the weight you now carry. The heaviness you feel in your spirit isn't depression, it's destiny calling. It's time to release the fear, release the guilt, and release the doubt. Your steps are ordered, your timing is aligned, and your exit is heaven approved. This isn't a soft ending. It's a holy emergence. Not a retreat, but a release. Not a breakdown, but a breakthrough. So walk, step, move, not in fear, not in shame, but in the full awareness that you were born for this exit, and as you go, the wilderness will not follow you. The chains won't survive the crossing. What bound you before has no access now. Your exit is irreversible. This time, you're not going back. You thought they were random signs, numbers repeating, dreams resurfacing, emotions rising without reason. But let this be said clearly, nothing about this has been random. Every detail has been deliberate. Every tug in your spirit, every pause in your momentum, every shift in your atmosphere, it's all been heaven's code, pointing you to this moment. Because when God is preparing a chosen one for transition, He doesn't always speak through thunder. Sometimes He speaks through patterns, silence, interruptions, and small internal nudges that refuse to be ignored. You've been hearing Him, even if you didn't recognize the voice. The proof is in the repetition. The proof is in the tension. Why have you been seeing 2:22, 3:33 or 5:55 at the most inconvenient, unavoidable moments? Why do certain scriptures keep reappearing in your life? Why does the same phrase, the same warning, the same encouragement come to you from different people, platforms, and places? Because the signs are not coincidences, they are confirmations. It's not your imagination. It's not overthinking. It's not superstition. It's the voice of the Holy Spirit, training your senses to discern what the natural mind can't explain. This is not the season to overlook the signs. This is the season to decode them, because the message has been consistent. You're coming out of the wilderness. You haven't lost your mind. You've gained spiritual sensitivity. Your dreams are waking up again. Your spiritual appetite is returning. Your discernment is getting sharper. And that's not accidental. That's God reminding you that your promise is not dead, it's awakening. When God is ready to move, He prepares His people with patterns, just like He sent signs to Moses. Just like He repeated Himself through dreams to Joseph. Just like He marked the birth of Jesus with prophetic alignment. And just like He spoke through visions, storms, and strangers in the book of Acts. You, too, have been receiving divine signals, not because you were seeking signs, but because God was seeking you. You're not chasing confirmation. Confirmation has been chasing you. The repeated phrases you keep hearing, the fire you feel during specific worship songs, The way Scripture suddenly becomes alive in your hands, those are not coincidences. That is divine proof that your time in the wilderness is shifting. And make no mistake, the enemy has been watching these signs too. That's why your warfare intensified when you got closer to clarity. That's why distractions suddenly increased when you started recognizing the pattern. The enemy fears a chosen one who becomes aware, but it's too late now. You've already seen too much. You've already sensed too deeply. You're already walking toward the exit. And the signs are everywhere, if you're willing to look again. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 2, verse 14, "The person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolish. But the person with the Spirit makes judgments about all things." What does this mean for you? That what others dismissed, you discerned. What others laughed off, you leaned into. What others mocked as nonsense, you followed with faith. And now that sensitivity is positioning you for a divine crossing. The exit is not just coming, it's being confirmed. God isn't just speaking, He's shouting through everything around you. But only those with ears to hear will respond. So don't ignore the patterns. Don't dismiss the stirrings. Don't explain away the unexplainable. These are your instructions in disguise, and some of them are time-sensitive. Comment, "I see it." End, because when you declare it, you agree with it. This simple statement isn't just a reaction, it's a recognition. You're acknowledging that heaven has been speaking, and now you're listening. It's your way of saying, "I won't miss this signal." There are moments in life when the signs become too obvious to ignore. This is one of those moments. Look again. Pray again. Listen deeper. Because God isn't hiding, He's revealing. Your wilderness didn't mute God's voice. It trained you to hear it more clearly. And now that you're paying attention, everything is shifting. You'll start seeing divine fingerprints on every page of your life where you once saw confusion. You'll see choreography where you once felt forgotten. You'll see how closely heaven has been watching you. Every reroute, every closed door, every delay, it was all part of a pattern that leads here, out of dryness, into destiny. The signs were never random. They were proof that your exit was being scripted with precision, hidden, but never forgotten. There's a specific kind of ache that only those who've been hidden understand. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's the quiet wondering of a soul asking, "God, do you still see me?" It's the long, slow walk through invisibility when your gifts go unnoticed, your prayers unanswered, your presence overlooked, and yet, even in the hiding, you were held. This is the sacred truth most never discern while they're in it. God hides what He values. He conceals what He intends to preserve. You weren't hidden because you were unworthy. You were hidden because you were anointed, protected from premature exposure, shielded from platforms your character wasn't ready to carry, hidden not to be forgotten, but to be fortified. The pain of obscurity has a purpose. It purges you of performance. It breaks the addiction to applause. It crushes the desire to be seen before you are truly ready to be used. Because visibility without preparation is a setup for collapse. And God loves you too much to let you collapse in public. So He hid you, not out of punishment, but out of mercy. Not because He was done with you, but because He was just getting started. You were set apart long before you ever felt overlooked. While others rushed into places prematurely, God was building you in secret. While they were chasing approval, you were being anchored. While they were performing, you were being purified. You weren't late, you were being layered. You weren't forgotten, you were being forged. That deep yearning you've carried to be seen, to be useful, to be released, it hasn't gone unnoticed. In fact, heaven planted that desire in you, but it had to be refined. God had to separate your calling from your craving. He had to teach you that being chosen is not the same as being visible. And now you know the difference. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms. Chapter 32, verse 7. You are my hiding place. You will protect me from trouble and surround me with songs of deliverance. Let that speak to your soul. The hiding was not isolation, it was insulation. It was God Himself who placed you where eyes could not see, where voices could not distract, and where the enemy could not reach. Not only did He hide you, He surrounded you, not with shame, but with deliverance. It might have looked like people overlooked you, but it was God who covered you. There were rooms He didn't let you enter, conversations He didn't let you be part of, opportunities He didn't let come your way. And you thought it was rejection, but now you see, it was redirection. He didn't let you attach to certain people not because they were bad, but because they were not built to walk with what you carry. He didn't allow some of your prayers to be answered, not because He ignored you, but because the request was beneath the promise. He didn't let some doors open, not because you weren't worthy, but because they led somewhere smaller than where He's taking you. You see now, hiddenness wasn't the absence of favor. It was proof of protection. God was more interested in making you holy than making you popular, more focused on shaping your soul than showcasing your strengths. And the ones who truly carry weight in the kingdom are always shaped in secret. The oil you carry didn't come from being seen. It came from being crushed when no one was watching. You've grown roots in dark places. You've learned to worship in silence. You've learned to fight without recognition. You've learned to believe without applause. And because of that, you're unshakable. The ones who are hidden with God become the ones who cannot be shaken by man. So no, you haven't missed your moment. You haven't disqualified yourself. You haven't fallen behind. You are exactly where you need to be standing at the end of your hidden season, marked by the strength only. Secret places can build. The time of unveiling is near. Not because you demanded it, but because you're finally ready for it. Your gift has been purified. Your heart has been softened. Your roots have grown deep. And now, when you are seen, it won't be about spotlight. It'll be about assignment. So stand still just a moment longer, not in fear, but in reverence. Because when heaven begins to reveal what it has hidden, it doesn't whisper, it thunders. And soon, the silence that surrounded you will break, not with noise, but with clarity, not with chaos, but with divine commissioning. You will be called forth not just to be seen, but to be sent. You were hidden for a reason, and now, the reason is about to be revealed. You didn't waste time in the wilderness. You were being trained. Every hardship you walked through, every lonely night, every delay you didn't understand, heaven was recording it all. None of it was lost. None of it was in vain. What looked like stagnation was strategy. What felt like punishment was preparation. And now, God is beginning to unfold what He built in the shadows. You're not just stepping out of the wilderness, you're stepping into the reason why it existed. There's a lie the enemy has whispered to you over and over again, that you're behind, that you're late, that you've missed your moment. But the truth is this: you were never behind schedule. You were on heaven's time, not man's. And while you were being overlooked by people, you were being trained by fire. While others were performing, you were enduring. While others were being promoted for visibility, you were being processed for power. That's why you can't compare your path to anyone else's. What God is doing with you isn't surface, it's deep. It's not fast, it's eternal. And it's not just for show, it's for souls. The truth is, God never wastes obedience. He never ignores suffering, and He never overlooks faithfulness. You've continued to believe. Even when you didn't see fruit, you've kept sowing. Even when the ground looked dry, you've kept praying. Even when heaven felt silent. And now, the return is coming, not because you earned it, but because He promised it. This is the part of your story where heaven starts revealing the reason behind the resistance. Every battle made you stronger. Every delay made you wiser. Every disappointment taught you how to lean, not on your own understanding, but on the one who never fails. God was using the wilderness to wean you off of false dependencies. That's why it hurt so much. That's why you felt so exposed. You weren't just losing people or positions, you were losing your need for approval, for performance, for constant validation. And now that you've been stripped of those things, you're stronger than ever. You are no longer driven by who claps or who criticizes. You've graduated from needing affirmation to walking in authority. That's the mark of a true chosen one. The apostle reminds us in his second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 17, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all." Alzing, the wilderness produced something weighty in you, glory. And glory isn't flashy. It's not about crowds or fame. It's about carrying something from heaven that shifts atmospheres, breaks chains, and awakens destiny in others. And yes, it came at a cost, but the cost was worth it. Because now, when you speak, it carries power. Now, when you walk into a room, demons know it. Now, when you pray, walls tremble, because you've been through the fire and you didn't come out empty-handed. You came out with evidence. You've been asking, "God, when will it be my time?" And heaven is answering. Now that you no longer need the spotlight to serve, now that you've surrendered even the promise itself back to me, now that I can trust you to carry what I've given without being destroyed by it, then this is not the end. This is the equipping. You are not just a survivor, you are a deliverer. You are not just someone who endured, you are someone commissioned. Now that you've come through the proving ground, your voice carries weight, your hands carry oil, your journey carries testimony. And everything the enemy tried to bury you with will now become a weapon in your hand. So keep showing up, keep speaking truth, keep obeying even when it doesn't make sense. And if this word stirred something deep within you, don't let it stop here. This message is not just for you, it's a seed for someone else's breakthrough. If you've been blessed by what you're hearing, like it, so this message can reach someone else caught in a silent battle. Share it with someone who feels forgotten, abandoned, or stuck in their own wilderness. Someone needs this word just like you did. And if you feel led to go deeper, To stay connected to this prophetic flow, subscribe. There's more coming. And your alignment matters. Don't just consume, partner with the flow. Some of you may even feel a tug in your spirit to sow. If that's you, don't ignore it. This is fertile ground. When you sow into what feeds your spirit, you're not just giving, you're making room for heaven to multiply back into your life. Not because of obligation, but because of obedience. Let the Spirit lead you. You're not watching this by accident. You're part of a remnant. And this season marks your transition from training to commissioning. This is where mantle meets mission. What's ahead will demand everything God developed in the wilderness. And you're ready. The wind is shifting. You've felt it, haven't you? That subtle tension in the air, that stirring in your spirit that you can't explain to anyone, not even yourself. You've looked around and nothing's changed on the outside, but something on the inside is rising. Unsettling, untamed, quietly urgent. What you're sensing is real. The shift isn't coming, it's already begun, and your spirit knows before your eyes do. This is what it feels like when heaven starts moving on your behalf. This is what it feels like when the dry place begins to shake. God doesn't always announce a shift with thunder. Sometimes He whispers. Sometimes He disrupts your rhythm. Sometimes He makes what was once comfortable feel foreign. And that's what's been happening to you lately. You don't feel at home in places that used to soothe you. You can't find peace in distractions that once numbed the ache. You're losing your taste for the temporary, and that's how you know heaven is calling you forward. The wilderness is losing its grip. Something is breaking open in the spiritual realm, and the winds of movement are swirling around your life. You may not see it yet, but you've already crossed a line you can't go back from. You've shifted from waiting to walking, from silence to strategy, from survival to surrender. What's happening around you may still feel uncertain, but what's happening within you is unmistakable. You are being aligned, pulled into position, loosened from what tried to hold you captive. And, yes, that comes with resistance, because every time God begins to move, the enemy tries to distract. Every time the Spirit begins to elevate, the voices of confusion try to pull you back. The warfare you're facing is not proof that you're in the wrong place. It's proof that you're almost out. That conflict in your emotions, that sudden weariness when you try to pray, that heaviness that sits on you with no warning, it's all part of the spiritual turbulence that happens when you're transitioning from one realm to another. But take heart. You're not being punished, you're being propelled. The shaking isn't the end. It's the beginning of breakthrough. We find in the book of Micah, chapter 2, verse 13, the one who breaks open the way will go up before them. They will break through the gate and go out. Their king will pass through before them, the Lord at their head. End quote. This is your confirmation. The breaker has gone before you. He's not asking you to fight your way through. He's leading you out. That unease you feel is because the old structure can no longer hold the new anointing. You're not stuck. You're shedding. You are no longer who you were when you entered the wilderness. You've outgrown what tried to contain you. And now, the ground beneath you is shifting to make way for where God is taking you next. Don't resist the restlessness. It's your spirit waking up. Don't panic when things around you start falling apart. Sometimes, doors must fall before gates can open. The shift doesn't always look like a promotion. Sometimes it looks like loss, like confusion, like isolation. But what if the stripping is actually preparation? What if what looks like falling apart is actually God rearranging the pieces? The wind is shifting, and with it, your atmosphere is changing. You're about to breathe differently, move differently, see differently, speak with a weight you didn't carry before, walk with a confidence you didn't know you had. Because the wilderness didn't just test you, it transformed you. And now the Spirit is saying, pay attention to the wind. The change won't always be loud. The exit won't always be obvious. But those who are led by the Spirit know when the time has come to move, even when the path isn't fully visible. God is going to begin confirming this word through moments that catch your spirit. Unexpected clarity, sudden peace, unexplainable conviction, divine encounters, patterns of alignment. These aren't small things. They're signals. The wind is shifting, and the wise will move with it. Comment the number 1111 below if you know this word was for you. That number represents divine alignment, open doors, and prophetic momentum. It is the sound of heaven saying, move now. I'm with you. By commenting, you're not just responding emotionally, you are responding prophetically. You are coming into agreement with the wind of God. And when your agreement meets His movement, doors open that no man can shut. You've stayed faithful through the wilderness. Now stay sensitive through the shift. This wind won't pass you by. It's sent to carry you out. They watched you suffer, and they said nothing. They saw you fall, and they whispered. Instead of reaching, they heard the rumors, and instead of defending you, they disappeared. You didn't imagine the silence. You didn't misread the distance. And no, it wasn't your fault. But here's what they didn't see. God was watching too. They didn't see the midnight prayers you whispered through gritted teeth. They didn't see you clench your fists just to keep from breaking under the pressure. They didn't hear the inner vows you made. I won't quit. I won't fold. I won't turn back. Oh, and now, those same people who assumed your silence meant defeat are about to witness the very thing they never expected, your rise. You see, when God begins to lift a person He has hidden and humbled, it confounds those who thought your story had ended. They're going to see you again, but not the version they remember, not the version who was weary, misunderstood, or stripped bare by battle. They're going to see the one who emerged from the fire, forged by adversity, marked by grace. And here is the hard truth. God will allow certain people to stay in your life long enough to witness your transformation, not for their sake, but for His glory. The same crowd that watched Jesus bleed was the crowd that had to watch Him rise. And the same people who counted you out will have front row seats to what God is about to unveil through you. But don't let it become about revenge. This is not a comeback story, it's a kingdom story. Your elevation isn't for ego, it's for assignment. God is not exalting you so they'll regret how they treated you. He's exalting you so that every mouth may be silenced before His righteousness. This is not personal vindication. It's divine demonstration. Because God's been writing something they couldn't read. While they were judging the surface, He was building your foundation. While they were pointing at your scars, He was filling your hands with oil. While they were questioning your value, heaven was sealing your identity. So when the shift becomes visible, don't shrink. Don't try to explain how you got here. Don't waste breath trying to make them understand what God had to hide from them. They weren't supposed to see the breaking. They weren't assigned to your process. They weren't trusted with your pruning. And that's why they're not called to your promise. You were never created to be understood by the masses. You were built for obedience, not applause. So let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them whisper. They won't be able to deny the evidence. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 13. Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. No, that verse wasn't just about Pharaoh. It's about anything that tried to keep you small. Every oppressive thought, every toxic cycle, every voice that told you your wilderness would never end. Stand firm. Don't flinch. Because the deliverance is not coming. It's unfolding right now. And the proof won't be in your words. It will be in your life. The fruit will be loud. The light will be undeniable. And yes, your enemies will see it. But they won't be able to stop it. Because this isn't your plan playing out. It's God's. It was written before you ever cried your first tear in that hidden place. But listen carefully. When the moment comes and eyes turn toward you, stay low before God. Pride will try to hijack the moment. Bitterness will tempt you to gloat. But this is not about them. This is about the God who sustained you in the silent places, in the breaking seasons, in the battles no one saw. What you carry now didn't come from public success. It came from private surrender. That's why you don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to fight for your name. God is about to speak through your outcome. And when He does, don't point them to yourself. Point them to the one who pulled you out when you had nothing left to give. Let your rise be a revelation. Let your testimony be louder than their opinions. Let your obedience speak louder than their silence ever did. Because when God lifts a person, no hand can pull them down. And when He speaks through a life, no mouth can silence the message. Let them watch, not so they see you, but so they see Him, the one who never left you. There are prophetic words over your life that have not expired. They didn't die in the delay. They didn't fade when people walked away. They didn't disappear just because the wilderness lasted longer than you expected. No, those words are still alive, and they are in motion. Just because you haven't seen the fruit yet doesn't mean the seed wasn't planted. Just because it hasn't manifested in the natural doesn't mean it hasn't already been activated in the spirit. What heaven speaks, heaven protects, and what heaven protects, hell cannot stop. The enemy's greatest strategy wasn't to destroy the promise, it was to get you to forget it. If he couldn't kill your calling, he tried to dull your memory. He made you question whether you heard God clearly. He tried to make you think it was all in your head, just emotional, just hype, just coincidence. But it wasn't. Those moments when your spirit leapt, those words that pierced deeper than understanding, those dreams that wouldn't die, no matter how long they've been waiting in silence, those were real. They were heaven's reminders that you've been marked for something more. You might have forgotten some of the promises. You may have moved on, stopped praying for them, even lowered your expectations to protect yourself from disappointment. But God never moved on. The words He spoke over you are still active in the atmosphere, circling, waiting for alignment, waiting for the moment, heaven says. Now, He doesn't need to rewrite what He already spoke. He's just been waiting for the version of you that can carry it. You needed the wilderness to sharpen your character. You needed the delay to stretch your faith. You needed the silence to learn how to hear God without noise. Because when that word comes to pass, You'll recognize it, not just with your ears, but with your spirit. There's a reason why old prophetic words have started coming back to you. The ones you wrote in journals years ago. The ones someone gave you and you didn't know how to receive at the time. The ones that felt too big, too impossible, too far off. They are surfacing now not by accident, but by divine orchestration. The Spirit doesn't stir old words for nostalgia. He stirs them for fulfillment. The Apostle Paul wrote in his first letter to Timothy, chapter 1, verse 18, Timothy, my son, I am giving you this command in keeping with the prophecies once made about you, so that by recalling them you may fight the battle well. Did you catch that? By recalling them. The prophetic words over your life are not decorations, they're weapons. And when you recall them, you're not being dramatic, you're being strategic. You fight by remembering. You endure by rehearsing. You stay aligned by declaring again what God already said. Because if you don't remember what He said, the enemy will convince you of what He didn't. He'll tell you God changed His mind, that your mistakes cancelled the promise, that your age disqualified you, that your detour was too far from redemption. But none of that is true. The words spoken over you have not lost their power. You may be weary. You may feel unqualified. You may not even know how to begin believing again. But heaven is not asking for your feelings. Heaven is asking for your agreement. Will you partner again with the words God once whispered? Will you let your faith rise? Not in hype, but in remembrance. This is a holy recall, a sacred invitation to stand under the weight of promise again. Even if your hands are trembling, the word hasn't expired. The delay hasn't cancelled the outcome. And what seemed dead is about to breathe again. The bones are rattling. The pages are turning. And God is saying, I didn't forget what I said over you, did you? Dust off the journals. Revisit the dreams. Reclaim the decrees. Because the wilderness was never meant to kill the prophecy. It was meant to test whether you could carry it. Now that you've been refined, the word is being reactivated. Heaven has not forgotten. And it's time you remember too. You didn't just survive to forget, you survived to fulfill. This isn't the season to downplay what heaven declared. It's the season to stand in full remembrance of every word, every whisper, every divine utterance that ever touched your spirit. Even the words that scared you, even the ones that felt too big. You're not waiting on them. They've been waiting on you to believe again. And now, the alignment begins. You're standing closer than you realize. Closer to breakthrough. Closer to fulfillment. Closer to the place heaven has been preparing for you all along. But this is the moment many never cross. The danger is not in going back. The danger is in stopping just short. Don't settle at the border. You've survived the drought. You've endured the silence. You've passed the tests that no one else saw. But right now, the enemy's final strategy is not destruction. It's distraction. If he can't take you out, he'll try to wear you down, make you stop walking, make you question what you saw, what you heard, and what you believed in the dark. This is where many quit, not in the storm, but at the threshold. Because after all you've been through, it feels easier to stay here, at the edge, at the safe place between what you've survived and what you've dreamed of. You're tired, you're uncertain, you're tempted to build a life in the wilderness, because at least you've learned how to survive here. But you weren't born to survive, you were born to possess. And there is no inheritance on the border. The border is deceptive. It feels like progress. You're not in Egypt anymore. You're not drowning in despair, but you're also not fully walking in promise. And if you're not careful, you'll start calling this almost life, your only life. That's not your portion. You didn't carry all that fire just to warm a campsite outside your calling. You didn't walk through years of refining just to collapse in transition. You didn't overcome battles in the dark just to settle for spiritual maintenance. You were made to cross over. And yes, crossing over is costly. It will cost your comfort. It will demand your full surrender. It will require you to abandon the identity you've built around surviving and step into the uncertainty of receiving. But hear this, the border was never meant to be your destination. It's your decision point. You're not just walking out of something, you're walking into something. And just like Israel stood at the edge of Canaan and had to choose to believe God over their fears, you now stand before the edge of everything He promised you. The wilderness ends at obedience, but Canaan begins at courage. As Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 9, verse 62, "No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God." You cannot enter promise while still longing for the patterns of the past. You cannot hold the plow of your future while mourning the comfort of yesterday. And you cannot inherit what you don't pursue. This is the moment where you must war against weariness. This is where you remember why you started. This is where you defy every voice telling you it's too late, too much, or too hard. It's not. The border is not a dead end, it's a decision. You can shrink back, or you can press forward. The fire hasn't left you. The word hasn't expired, and the grace to cross is still available. But make no mistake, this is a now moment. You cannot delay this obedience for another year, another season, another sign. You already know what God said. You already see the alignment. You already feel the weight of destiny pulling on your spirit. So why wait? Don't die on the edge of what God said you could live in. Don't trade fulfillment for familiarity. Don't let fear write the final chapter. You're not here to settle. You're not here to pause. You're not here to make camp. You're here to move forward. So move. And if you feel the fire of this word, let your spirit come into agreement. Comment, "I won't stop." Because when you write those words, you're not just typing, you're testifying. You're breaking agreement with weariness, with fear, with spiritual paralysis. You're making it known in the spirit realm. I'm crossing over. That short sentence carries the weight of every battle you've survived. It is a line drawn in the sand. You're telling the enemy, telling your own doubt, telling every delay that tried to hold you enough. You've come too far to quit now. You may feel tired, but you're not done. You may not see the full picture, but you know the one who called you, and He hasn't brought you this far to leave you here. You cannot carry the wilderness into the promised land. The atmosphere is changing. The assignment is shifting. But if your mindset remains the same, the new territory will feel like a familiar prison. That's why God is confronting what you've been carrying internally, not to punish you, but to prepare you. You've walked through the dry season. You've been faithful through delay. But now, the Lord is dealing with the residue of wilderness, thinking, the fear, the doubt, the self-sabotage, the survival instinct that taught you to expect little, prepare for disappointment, and never trust too deeply. But hear this, that mindset can't cross over with you. You can't enter a land of abundance while thinking like a slave to lack. You can't walk in authority while still begging for permission. You can't dwell in promise while replaying the trauma of your past seasons. The chains are no longer on your body, but they still try to cling to your thinking. And if the enemy can't stop your feet, he'll try to hijack your mind. That's why this moment is holy. God is not just bringing you out. He's cleansing what's still clinging to you. Not your surroundings, your system of belief. The people of Israel were freed from Egypt, but Egypt still lived in them. They saw giants where God saw victory. They spoke fear where God had already decreed inheritance. And because of that, an entire generation died just short of promise, not because God failed them, but because they never let the wilderness leave their thinking. That won't be your story. You're not called to circle old patterns. You're not called to repeat generational cycles. You're called to walk forward as a new creation, in a new realm, with a renewed mind. And that transformation begins now, not when you arrive in Canaan, but here in this sacred moment of surrender. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verses 18 and 19. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. This isn't poetic language, it's instruction. You cannot cling to old perspectives and expect new manifestation. You can't hold the weight of your next if your hands are still wrapped around the pain of your last. The past served its purpose. The wilderness was not a waste, but it was never meant to become your identity. God is doing something new, not recycled, not familiar, new. And the new demands a different mindset. Wilderness thinking says, what if it doesn't work? Kingdom thinking says, what if it's already begun? Wilderness thinking says, I'm not qualified. End quote. Kingdom thinking says, if God called me, He's covered me. End quote. Wilderness thinking says, I've failed too much. End quote. Kingdom thinking says, grace rewrites the outcome. End quote. God is not just changing your surroundings. He's reshaping your identity. That's why this season has been uncomfortable. That's why your thoughts have felt like battlegrounds. It's not random. It's a sign that breakthrough isn't coming. It's demanding access. But it can only rest on the renewed version of you. You can't take bitterness into the blessing. You can't take control into your calling. You can't take unbelief into the next realm of glory. This is a moment of divine exchange, and heaven is waiting for your agreement. Say yes to the refining. Yes to the realignment. Yes to the surrender that births clarity. If this word is resonating in you right now, don't let it stop at inspiration. This isn't just a feel-good moment. It's an activation. There are others out there clinging to the pain of the wilderness because they've never been told they were allowed to release it. If this message brought light to you, like it, so it can bring light to them. Share it with someone who needs permission to step out of survival and into sonship. And if this well has been speaking to your spirit again and again, subscribe to stay connected. You weren't meant to walk this journey alone. You're part of something heaven is building brick by brick, word by word, moment by moment. Some of you may even feel a deeper prompting, a tug in your spirit to sow into this word. If that's you, let it be a seed of agreement. You're not just supporting a message, you're honoring the voice of God that found you in the wilderness and is now pulling you forward. Let your giving be worship. Let it be a bold yes to what's next. Because what's next requires everything God built in secret. The renewal wasn't just for peace, it was for possession, and the territory is waiting on the renewed version of you. So don't bring your old fears into a new field. Don't let wilderness habits sabotage promise-level harvest. God has done his part, now do yours. Renew your mind. Release what no longer belongs. Receive what's already waiting. You're not who you were when you entered this desert, and that changes everything. The timing of heaven is never random. You may not see the full picture yet, but the pieces are moving. Things that were once disconnected are now finding alignment. Conversations that seemed fruitless months ago suddenly carry weight. People who were once distant are being drawn back. Doors that once seemed welded shut are creaking open. It's not coincidence, it's convergence. God is scheduling divine appointments on your behalf. This is what happens when the wilderness season ends and the promise begins to take shape. You're not just surviving anymore. You're stepping into strategy. Heaven is not just watching, you are now participating in a carefully crafted divine calendar. And in this season, you must become sensitive to the rhythm of God's timing. Not everything will look supernatural. Some of the most life-shifting moments will come through subtle nudges, a sudden urge to reach out to someone, a conversation you didn't plan, an idea that won't leave your spirit, a delayed moment that puts you in the exact place at the exact time to meet the exact person who holds the next key. You don't need to strive for these encounters. You need to be still enough to recognize them. Heaven doesn't operate on human clocks, and what looks like delay to you may actually be precision to God. What felt like rejection may have been redirection to preserve the divine setup. Some of you are about to walk into rooms you didn't campaign for. You're about to meet people you didn't network your way toward. You're about to receive answers from places you weren't even looking. Why? Because the favor on your life is now being matched with timing. Timing unlocks what talent never could. Timing puts your name in places your hands never reached. Timing connects you with resources your budget couldn't imagine. This is what happens when obedience and readiness collide with heaven's schedule. This is what happens when you refuse to manipulate the process and instead trust the pace of God. There are relationships being restructured right now, not because you're being rejected, but because heaven is clearing room for new alignments. You don't need more people, you need the right ones. God is not adding clutter. He's building connection. He's assigning people to your next season, voices that carry wisdom, hands that will lift you, hearts that carry similar fire. These aren't just friends, they're divine reinforcements. And when they come, you'll know. You'll feel it in your spirit before your mind can explain it. You're also about to be sent to someone, because divine appointments aren't just for receiving, they're for releasing. You've been filled in the wilderness. Now God is calling you to pour, not out of exhaustion, but out of overflow. There's someone praying for an answer you carry. There's someone crying for confirmation that's in your mouth. There's someone battling confusion, and your presence will be the breaking point that shatters the fog. Don't minimize your role. You may think, I'm not ready, but your obedience will matter more than your confidence ever could. You don't need the spotlight to be significant. You need surrender. That's the posture that unlocks divine appointments. The ancient words in the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 9, still ring true. In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. Let that anchor you. You haven't missed it. You haven't ruined it. You haven't fallen behind. Every step, even the ones that felt wrong, Even the seasons that felt wasted, God is now weaving it all into a path that makes sense only in hindsight. That conversation that felt like a failure, it planted a seed. That connection that ghosted you, it cleared space for someone better aligned. That disappointment you thought delayed everything, it protected you from premature access to something your heart wasn't ready to carry. God's appointments don't need your striving. They need your awareness. So don't rush. Don't force doors. Don't chase connections. Walk slowly. Pray deeply. Listen carefully. And watch how suddenly everything starts falling into place, not because of chance, but because of timing. The same God who scheduled your survival has now scheduled your emergence. And nothing, no delay, no detour, no rejection can cancel what heaven has already arranged. You are not wandering anymore. You are being guided. Stay sensitive. Stay surrendered. The calendar of heaven is unfolding. So walk with expectation, not anxiety, not urgency, but a quiet confidence that knows what is for you will find you. Not late, not early, but exactly when heaven says, now. Oh, you've been walking quietly, faithfully, almost invisibly, but something is moving in the unseen. You may not feel it. You may not see it yet. But your exit season has already been activated. This is not just a shift in emotion. It's a shift in timing. You're stepping out of delay, out of wondering when it will be your turn. And you're stepping into the unfolding of what God has already prepared, but was waiting for the right moment to reveal. You're not waiting on the wilderness to end anymore. It has already ended in the Spirit. What you're walking through now is the unfolding, the revealing, the release. And here's the truth. The enemy knows it. That's why the pressure has increased. That's why the noise has gotten louder. That's why the temptation to shrink back has felt stronger than ever. Because the enemy fights hardest when your exit season is not just near, but active. What does that mean? It means things are already moving, even if you haven't yet seen them shift. It means what once resisted you is starting to bend under the weight of divine timing. It means doors are trembling on their hinges, and barriers are beginning to weaken, not because of your strength, but because heaven has spoken. This isn't about force. It's about flow. The signs are subtle, but they're consistent. You're sensing more restlessness in places that used to feel familiar. People are shifting around you, some drifting away, others appearing unexpectedly. Opportunities are surfacing again. But this time, you're looking at them with different eyes. You've grown. You're not disparity. You're discerning. That's what happens when a chosen one moves from survival into sovereignty, not man-made authority, but the authority that comes from having endured, passed through, and still chosen God. And that's where you are, standing at the gate, not of possibility, but of activation. This is not a vague hope for change. This is the moment where what was invisible starts pressing into the visible, where what was whispered begins to echo, where what was planted in tears begins to rise unapologetically, undeniably. Right on time, the Spirit spoke through the prophet Amos. Chapter 90, verse 13. The days are coming, declares the Lord, when the reaper will be overtaken by the plowman and the planter by the one treading grapes. That's prophetic acceleration. Things that used to take years will start happening in days. Things that required striving before will now require only obedience. You will look up and find that the wait is over, and everything you planted in faith is breaking through the surface, all at once. But here's the instruction: don't resist it. Exit seasons require movement. You don't just believe the word, you walk it out. You don't just nod in agreement, you prepare like it's already happening. No more playing small. No more spiritual procrastination. No more treating divine instruction like casual suggestion. This is not just another chapter. This is a divine crossover. So start cleaning what you've let collect dust. Start praying over what you once gave up on. Start speaking again over what you buried. Your posture must now match your prophecy, because if heaven is saying, move, then standing still becomes disobedience, even if it's passive. And I know you've waited so long it feels risky to hope again. But the risk is worth it, because this time, you're not stepping out in your own strength. You're stepping with heaven at your back, timing under your feet, and promise lighting your path. Comment: the number 1212. If your spirit knows this is your exit season, that number marks divine government and transition, a signal that authority is shifting and movement is mandated. When you type it, you're not just agreeing with this word, you're making a declaration: I'm walking out. Let it be a sign to every delay, every distraction, every voice of fear that you are not staying here. The time has come. The gates are open. The wind is shifting, and your feet are already moving. You're not waiting for permission anymore. Heaven already said, yes. Now, your posture must echo that agreement. Walk like it's already shifting. Speak like it's already released. Praise like it's already done. What you felt pressing against you was never meant to stop you, it was meant to push you into purpose. This is your exit, and nothing can delay it now. Every force that resisted your movement is breaking. Every unseen chain is snapping. And every step you take from this moment forward is proof. You've already crossed into next. You are not disqualified. Let that truth settle deep in your spirit. Let it confront every lie you've believed about your worth. Let it uproot every shame-filled memory that still tries to speak louder than God's mercy. You've been walking under a weight that was never yours to carry, this fear that maybe, just maybe, you've gone too far, failed too hard, waited too long. But heaven is speaking clearly now. You are not disqualified. The wilderness didn't void your calling. The detours didn't cancel your destiny. The broken chapters of your story didn't erase what was written before time began. The potter never throws away the clay. He reshapes it, refines it, restores it. There's a difference between consequence and disqualification. And far too often, the enemy will use your regrets to distort that line. He'll whisper, if you really had purpose, you wouldn't have ended up here. But God doesn't speak in shame. God convicts to correct, not condemn. If you're still breathing, you're still called. If your heart still responds to His presence, you're still chosen. Nothing disqualifies a heart that returns to the altar. You may have drifted. You may have ignored the warnings. You may have made decisions that led you far from the place God first showed you. But the story isn't over. Not for a son who comes home, not for a daughter who dares to return. The blood still speaks. The mercy still reaches. The call still stands. This is the scandalous beauty of grace. What should have disqualified you becomes the very stage where redemption shines the brightest. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Joel, chapter 2, verse 25. I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten, even the years even the seasons you thought were wasted, even the opportunities you let pass, even the relationships that crumbled. God doesn't just restore moments, He restores time. That's what grace does. It redeems more than your reputation. It redeems your rhythm. It gives back time in ways you didn't think were possible. But to receive that restoration, you must silence the voice of unworthiness, because it will try to follow you out of the wilderness. It will say, "You're too stained to carry the oil." It will say, "God has moved on to someone else." It will say, "You had your chance, and you missed it." But those are not the words of the shepherd. That is the language of the accuser. God never stopped seeing you as His, even in your failure, even in your silence, even in your compromise. The oil may have been buried, but it was never broken. And now that you've endured the fire, you're carrying something even stronger: humility. Humility is heaven's seal on the heart that once wandered but now kneels. And here's what no one tells you. Your failures didn't just bruise you, they positioned you. They taught you to stop relying on image and start leaning on presence. They stripped away every illusion of self-sufficiency so that when the door opens again, you won't walk through it with ego, you'll walk through it with fear and trembling. Because you'll remember where you came from. You'll remember the pit. You'll remember the silence. And you'll know, with everything in you, that you're not standing by merit, you're standing by mercy. That's the kind of person God can trust. Not the flawless, not the polished, not the ones with perfect timelines, but the ones who've been broken and still believe, the ones who've failed and still follow, the ones who've wept and still worship. You are not disqualified. You are requalified by grace. And yes, there will be voices external and internal that try to argue with your restoration. Let them talk. You don't owe an explanation for grace. You don't need to justify redemption. You don't need to prove that you've changed. God doesn't restore you in private, so you can spend your life defending it in public. He restores you to walk in quiet confidence, knowing, "He who called me has made me clean." So return to the altar. Pick up the promise again. Reclaim what shame tried to bury. You are not starting from scratch, you're starting from strength. Strength forged in fire. Strength born from repentance. Strength anchored in grace. The wilderness did not ruin you. It revealed what was unshakable in you. And the God who started this work in you is not done yet. Not even close. You've been asking, "God, where is the proof?" Because if you're honest, there are days when your faith still feels fragile. The warfare has been relentless. The pressure hasn't let up. You've walked through the fire, obeyed through the silence, and endured through seasons that felt like contradiction, and still no sign, no breakthrough, no visible change. But you need to know something. The proof doesn't always come quietly. Sometimes it shows up through the shaking. You've mistaken the tremors for trouble. But in the kingdom, shaking is often the announcement that something is being released. Before the chains fell off of Paul and Silas, the prison had to shake. Before the curtain in the temple tore in two, the ground had to tremble beneath the cross. Before God led Israel through the Red Sea, the wind had to fight against the waters all night. Before resurrection, there was a violent quake that split open the tomb. The shaking is not a sign of defeat. It is evidence that God is disturbing the systems that held you. He is unsettling what once settled around you. He is rattling every structure that tried to define your limitations. The shaking is proof that heaven has entered your atmosphere. But here's the mystery. The shaking doesn't just disrupt your external world, it confronts the internal scaffolding that's been holding up the old you. So, if everything feels unstable right now, if nothing seems clear, if what once felt secure now feels questionable, take heart. You're not falling apart. You're being realigned. Because before God releases glory, He removes what can't sustain it. Before He establishes new order, He allows what's weak to collapse. Before He opens new doors, He makes sure your hands are empty of the old ones. The prophet Haggai recorded it like this in chapter 2, verse 6. In a little while I will once more shake the heavens and the earth, the sea and the dry land. I will shake all nations, and what is desired by all nations will come, and I will fill this house with glory. The shaking is not the end of the story, it's the preparation for glory. You've been bracing for breakdown, but heaven is preparing you for build-up. You've been fearing collapse, but God is making room for a foundation that won't crack under the weight of what's next. Sometimes God has to let what was comfortable fall, just to show you how strong His covering truly is. And yes, it feels violent. Yes, it's disorienting. Yes, it can even feel like punishment when it's really protection. You prayed for proof, and now the ground is moving beneath your feet. You asked for breakthrough, and God is answering not with silence, but with shaking. Because it's in the shaking that the doors break open. It's in the shaking that hidden things are exposed. It's in the shaking that chains loosen without human hands. Let your spirit discern what your emotions may not yet understand. The shaking is mercy. It's the final sign before things shift visibly. It's the last contraction before birth. It's the sound of old systems breaking so new strength can rise. What's falling away now was never meant to follow you. The opportunities that walked away, the people who distanced themselves, the structures that stopped working don't grieve what God is removing to protect your alignment. Not everything lost is a loss. Some losses are loud confirmations that you've grown beyond the place that once held you. You won't need to force the next season. The shaking is doing the separation for you. It's revealing what's built on rock and what's built on sand. And when the dust settles, what remains will be pure, holy, and unshakable. So no, you're not cursed. You're not forsaken. You're not being punished. You're being positioned. Everything around you might look like collapse, but inside you, God is building courage. And when the shaking ends, you'll find yourself standing in the middle of the very proof you prayed for. Not just survival, not just open doors, but fruit, evidence, favor, clarity, peace, momentum, and most of all, God's glory resting where you once only felt emptiness. The shaking is temporary. The proof is eternal. Let the ground move. Let what must fall, fall. He is not destroying you. He is announcing you. So don't fear the shifting. Don't resist the tremble. What feels unstable now will soon become undeniable evidence. The shaking is not your ending, it's your announcement. And heaven always shakes what it's about to reveal to the world. You've lived on manna long enough. You've survived day to day, trusting God for just enough to make it through. And yes, He was faithful. He sustained you. He kept food on the table, breath in your lungs, and just enough peace to keep going. But now, something is shifting, because the season of just enough is giving way to the season of more than enough. Olu. This is what happens when the wilderness ends. Provision is no longer daily desperation. It becomes divine overflow. You're not just surviving on grace anymore. You're stepping into a land that flows. The wilderness required daily miracles, but the promised land, it requires daily management. It's not about waiting for drops of provision anymore. It's about stewarding streams of abundance. You're moving from emergency to establishment, from being rescued to being rooted. This shift is spiritual, but it's also practical. In the wilderness, you only needed just enough strength to hold on, but in the promise, you need the wisdom to build, to multiply, to carry legacy. That's why God didn't release you earlier. You weren't ready to carry more. But now, you've grown, you've been pruned, you've been tested, you've been refined, and now, He's trusting you with increase. The Spirit spoke through the writings in Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 7. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land with brooks, streams, and deep springs, gushing into valleys and hills. Let that image settle in your spirit, not drops, but streams, not emergency provision, but flowing, sustained, generational blessing, and not just physical, spiritual, emotional, relational. Every area of your life is being called to rise into promise. But here's what you must remember. Promise doesn't mean ease. It means responsibility. You'll have to fight to protect what God gives. You'll have to steward what you once only dreamed of. You'll have to silence the wilderness voice that tells you to expect loss after every blessing, because the trauma of survival will try to follow you. It'll tell you not to get comfortable. It'll tell you not to trust the abundance. But that voice is a lie. You are no longer in the desert. You are no longer scraping for scraps. You've crossed into something different. It's time to stop apologizing for the favor. It's time to stop flinching at the blessing. It's time to stop acting like you're still in famine when heaven has moved you into fullness. You've earned none of this, but you've endured for all of it. And now, it's here. Land that flows. Fruit you didn't plant. Wells you didn't dig. Peace you didn't buy. Open doors you didn't force. Not because of you, because of His covenant, because of His mercy, because of His timing. So, what now? Now, you walk carefully. You remember. You honor. You worship. You keep your heart low and your hands open. Because increase is dangerous if it outgrows your humility. This is why the message can't stop with you. If this word pierced you, stirred something deep, or confirmed what you've been discerning, like this post, so it can find the next person still wandering in their dry place, share it with someone who needs to know the land still flows. You haven't missed it. When? And if you've found consistency in these messages, if this space has been a place of clarity and strength, subscribe to stay connected. You're not meant to walk through promise alone. There is alignment in community. There is power in consistency. Some of you, even now, may feel led to sow into what you've just received. And if that's you, let it be your seed of gratitude and agreement. You're not paying for a word. You're partnering with the flow. You're saying, God, I recognize the land I'm standing on, and I will not take it for granted. And comment your agreement in the comments below. You can simply say, I'm in my land, and because declaring it helps you own it. That's what the enemy fears, not that you enter, but that you settle and claim what's yours. Let this be the moment where everything shifts, from panic to peace, from scraping to stewarding, from waiting to walking, from manna to milk and honey. God didn't just deliver you to keep you dependent. He delivered you so you could become established. He's not feeding you just to survive another day. He's setting a table for generations. Welcome to the land that flows. And this time, you won't just visit the promise, you'll dwell in it. No more temporary blessings. No more borrowed peace. What flows now is yours, and it's flowing for the long haul. There are moments in your journey where silence speaks louder than signs, where nothing around you confirms what you believe within you, where your hands are empty, but your spirit is full, where you've obeyed, prayed, fasted, and followed, and yet everything looks the same. But do not mistake the quiet for absence. Do not confuse the stillness for stagnation. You are not stuck, you are settling into stability. Because when the wilderness ends, and the storms cease, and the fire dies down, you're left with something more powerful than noise, roots. This is where God establishes you, not with emotion, but with endurance, not with adrenaline, but with anchoring, not with a breakthrough shout, but with an unshakable knowing. And it's in this space, after the deliverance, after the warfare, after the whirlwind, that God begins to whisper your next. You've already been brought out. Now, He is building you up. This part is quiet, but it's strategic. You're learning to live in what you once only hoped for. You're adjusting to still waters after years of storms. You're discovering the strength it takes to stand firm, not just in survival, but in stewardship. It's not easy to remain faithful when the urgency is gone. The drama is over. The battle has passed. Now, it's just you and the promise. And that's where many walk away, not in the storm, but in the silence. Because there's no spotlight here, no obvious confirmation. Just fields waiting to be tilled, homes waiting to be built, and peace that feels unfamiliar. Don't run from this season. Don't despise the quiet. This is where legacy is born. The Spirit reminds us through the writings of Isaiah, chapter 32, verse 18. My people will live in peaceful dwelling places, in secure homes, in undisturbed places of rest. That's not fantasy. That's inheritance. That's not for the next life. That's what you're stepping into now. But here's the truth few speak about. Peace can feel intimidating when you've lived in pressure for too long. You're used to fighting. You're used to proving. You're used to watching your back, praying for survival, and second-guessing every good thing that comes your way. But now, the testing is behind you, and the trusting begins. You must learn to trust that the peace isn't temporary. You must learn to believe that the joy isn't bait. You must retrain your nervous system to recognize rest as holy, not suspicious. Because this is what the promised land feels like. Quiet mornings with no fear. Relationships that don't drain you. Work that feels aligned with your anointing. Sleep that isn't haunted by dread. You didn't get here by chance. You're not lucky. You're not here because God made a mistake. You're here because you endured. And now, the season of wandering is being replaced with a season of rooting. God is planting you deeper, not just for you, but for those who will come after you. Because the promise is never just personal. It's generational. Your children will benefit from your obedience. Your spiritual lineage will flourish because you didn't give up. The soil you till today will feed mouths you may never meet. So don't despise the mundane. Don't wish away the ordinary. Don't look for the next storm just to feel spiritual again. The maturity of a chosen one is this: you don't need fire to feel faithful. You don't need chaos to prove you're growing. You don't need resistance to validate your walk. You can sit in the stillness and know God is here. You can wake up without a crisis and still burn with purpose. You can walk through a quiet field and know this is holy ground too, because this is where true dominion begins, not just having land, but learning how to live on it. There's nothing glamorous about it. No applause, no drama, just slow, sacred building, just steady, spirit-led tending, just peace so deep that hell itself can't shake it. You're not being forgotten. You're being established. You're not being hidden. You're being planted. And planted things don't panic. They don't chase. They don't prove. They grow. And you, chosen one, are growing into something that can no longer be moved. Let the quiet remain. Let the peace speak. Let your roots go deep. This is the reward after the wilderness, not just breakthrough but becoming unbreakable. You're not reaching anymore, you're rooting. Not striving, but staying. This stillness isn't the absence of purpose, it's the proof of it. You've entered the season where presence matters more than pace, and peace becomes your most powerful possession. You've come through the desert. You've crossed over the border. You've stepped into the promise. And now you stand on the soil that was spoken over you long before you were born. This is not a dream. This is not a false alarm. This is the moment your spirit has always known was coming. But here's the part no one talks about: the weight of arrival. Because promise comes with pressure. Not pressure to perform, but pressure to remain faithful, to remain steady, to remain pure when power knocks, to remain rooted when platforms rise, to remain in Him when all eyes turn to you. This is where the maturity of the chosen is tested, not in lack, but in fulfillment. Lack will teach you how to seek, but fulfillment teaches you how to stay dependent when you finally have what you prayed for. This is where so many fall, not because they didn't make it, but because once they did, they forgot who brought them there. But you're different, not because of strength, but because of surrender. You've been marked by fire. You've been wounded in private and still showed up in worship. You've buried your pride in obedience. You've whispered yes through gritted teeth when you had every reason to quit. You are not arriving at this place as a beginner. You are arriving as someone who has endured, as someone who has scars and wisdom, as someone who knows the cost and still says yes. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 23. Verse 30, "Little by little I will drive them out before you, until you have increased enough to take possession of the land." No, this is not a microwave miracle. It's a slow conquest. You're not receiving everything at once. You're being trained to take ground. And it's not just for you. It never was. This territory isn't just a prize, it's an assignment. God didn't bring you here so you could admire the land. He brought you here to occupy it, to transform it, to build on it, to plant righteousness, truth, and legacy where there was once barrenness. And now, the building begins, not on sand, not on trauma, but on the solid foundation of faith formed in the fires of the wilderness. Don't look back. Don't second-guess your arrival. Don't try to measure what's ahead with the metrics of your past. This is a different season, a different land, and you are a different person. You walk with a limp now, not from loss, but from encounter. You bear the imprint of every altar, every tear, every secret battle that no one else saw. You carry a depth that only wilderness could forge. And that depth is your qualification. You are not empty-handed. You are not ill-equipped. You have what you need. God doesn't send the unprepared. He sends the willing. And you said yes. And now, all of heaven is backing that. Yes. Every step forward is a declaration. This land belongs to God. Oh, your presence is a prophetic act. Every room you enter, every space you claim, every heart you touch, it is all territory marked by divine purpose. You are the proof that obedience produces possession, that faithfulness in the shadows leads to visibility in the light, that God finishes what He starts, even if the process looks nothing like the promise. And now, this final truth remains. You are not just in the promise, you've become part of the fulfillment. You are the living evidence that God keeps His word. Let every mocking voice fall silent. Let every accusation be drowned by your testimony. Let every whisper of, "You'll never make it," be buried under the sound of your steps forward. You are no longer waiting. You are walking. You are no longer hoping. You are holding. You are no longer asking when. You are living in the now. Lo, let your spirit settle here. Let your heart rest here. Let your soul finally breathe here. You've made it. And better still, you're just getting started. Because this land isn't just where you arrive, it's where you reign. Where your voice carries authority. Where your yes holds weight. Where your worship opens gates. You won't just dwell, you'll dominate in love, in truth, in righteousness. You are heaven's strategy in this generation. The crown didn't come easy, but now it sits firm. You are not who you were. You are established. You are trusted. You are the evidence of survival, of surrender, and of supernatural stability. So walk tall, speak boldly, live deeply. You are not visiting victory, you are becoming it. If this word found you, really found you, then don't let it stop here. What heaven began in you through this message is meant to multiply. And sometimes, all it takes is a simple act of response to confirm your alignment with what God is doing. So if something inside you stirred, if a part of you finally exhaled, if you felt seen, understood, and set back in motion, then, like this message as a prophetic agreement, it's not about vanity. It's about visibility. When you engage, it tells the algorithm, send this to the next chosen one still wandering. M2. And if you know someone walking through their wilderness, share this. Not later. No. This could be the moment their season shifts. Let your share be the bridge between bondage and breakthrough. Comment below. I receive what's mine. M2. Let your public declaration echo what your spirit has already whispered. There is power in agreement, even in the comments. You're not just commenting, you're sealing your territory. If this message felt like home, subscribe to stay connected. This isn't just content. This is consecration. There's more coming. And you were never meant to walk this alone. Join the flow. Stay under the sound. And if this space has blessed you deeply, and you feel led, sow into it. Not out of pressure, not out of guilt, but as a prophetic act of honor and alignment. Let your seed say what words can't. God, I believe this was for me, and I stand in agreement. And you've reached the edge of the wilderness, but don't stop walking. The land flows. The promise stands, and your name is still written on it.